Hey, everybody. Welcome into the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. We have U.S. Senate candidate Dan Osborn with us today. We'll chat with Dan in just a moment. But first, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear your comments. So email us at backroomandy@gmail.com and/or post on our social media, and we'll read some feedback next time. And if you like the podcast, please rate and review and follow or subscribe, and you'll be notified every time we post a new episode. So Dan Osborn is a former union leader who gained national attention leading the 77-day Kellogg's strike in Omaha, Nebraska in 2021. He's a U.S. Navy veteran and father of three, and has spent the last 20 years punching a clock as a steamfitter and industrial mechanic. And now he's running for the U.S. Senate in his home state of Nebraska as an independent candidate focused on economic issues affecting working families. I love this conversation, and you should definitely stick around to the end for the Donald Trump, Jimmy Stewart, and Bernie Sanders impressions, although I'm not going to tell you right now who does who. Dan, welcome into the back room.
Thank you, Andy. It's good to be here with you.
So before we get into your campaign, take a moment to discuss your background, who you are, where you came from, family, upbringing kind of thing, your work.
Yeah, well, ultimately, I'm a son of a railroader. My mom was a seamstress. I came to Omaha at a very young age, and went to Catholic schools, and ultimately, my story started when I signed up for the Navy. Most of my family and generations of Osborns, and my mom's maiden name is Malby, and I got Coolies. It's a very, very Irish family. It's all military people. I signed up for the Navy. My grandfather, he retired from the Navy. He was in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. My dad met my mom while he was in the Navy. My uncles were all in the Navy. And then my older brother, he joined the Marine Corps, so we don't talk to him much anymore. But I'm kidding. And for all my raw friends out there, but yeah, really, I went through the Strait of Hormuz 4 times aboard the USS Constellation, an aircraft carrier. And what's interesting, when you go through the Strait of Hormuz in battle stations, nobody, not one time, asks anybody about their party affiliation. Right. Nobody's like, "Hey, you Democrat, you Republican." That doesn't exist. It's about the camaraderie and the brotherhood.
Yeah.
And I got out of the Navy. I did I also served 6 months in the Persian Gulf, but I got out of the Navy. I came back to Omaha, where I'm from. I started attending the university here in Omaha. And then I joined the Nebraska Army National Guard to continue my service. I was a 19 Kilo. I went to 19 Kilo school in Boise, Idaho. So I was a part of an M1A1 Abrams tank crew during that time. Same thing. On that tank crew, there's 4 people on the tank. Nobody talks politics. We don't care. It's all about, the brotherhood there. And, my life changed when when my wife had our first daughter, Georgia. She's 23 years old now, and when she was born, it wasn't about me anymore, and it's now about this being that you brought into the world. And so I got another honorable discharge from the National Guard. I dropped out of college and I went into the workforce because I needed some insurance and I needed some cash yesterday, right? So I got a job working at Kellogg's as an industrial mechanic. And, one of the first days on that job, an old Polish guy, his name was Ron Jabowski. He looked like Tom Selleck from Magnum PI, kind of a lot like you, like a real manly dude. And
I get that a lot.
Do you? Okay.
Especially the mustache.
Well, you gotta grow it out. Why aren't you growing it out?
You just caught me on a day I shaved, literally.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, usually I'm quite grown, my facial hair.
All right. Yeah, well, when I was a 26-year-old man, and Tom Selleck's telling me to join the union, which he said, "Hey kid, have you joined the union yet?" And I said, "No, sir, I have not." And he's like, "Well, you might want to think about doing that." So I'm like, "Oh crap, Tom Selleck's telling me to join the union. I better go do that." So I did that. And I worked hard for a lot of years, just keeping my head down, making a paycheck, raising my family. And I worked my way up into the union ranks. I made my way up to president, and I was president of my
Mm.
local union. That's bakery, confectionery, tobacco, and grain miller workers. So all factory workers. Uh, During COVID, we were deemed essential workers, right? Everybody was eating Kellogg cereal. That's who I work for. So Fruit Loops, Apple Jacks, Special K with red
Oh, the
berry.
healthy
Keep
stuff.
going. All the good stuff. All the good stuff
Yeah.
that when you're quarantined is something you want to be eating.
Uh-huh.
But I was working on the machines that made that cereal. And but anyway, during COVID, we were essential workers. So at that time, we were working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. We were working 16 hours, Sundays, Saturdays. We were putting in the hours. And Kellogg's made record profits during that time. Actually, at one point in time, 50% of our workforce, and there's 4 plants under the umbrella of the master contract around the country, all 4 of those plants, we were working those hours. They made record profits and went from $19 billion to $21 billion. The CEO, hey man, he gave himself a $2 million raise. Good job. The board enriched themselves. The stockholders enriched themselves. Stock buybacks. That's great, man. That's capitalism working at its finest. I don't have a problem with that. Here's the problem. Our contract expired at the end of it, and they said, hey, we're taking your health insurance. We're taking your cost of living adjustment, and then we're going to implement this 2-tier wage system with no path for the lower tier employee to go to the upper tier. So effectively, we'd all be on the lower tier. And so after 2 weeks in negotiation, anytime those 3 issues were brought up, the company would stand up and they'd walk out. And so we knew it was coming. There hadn't been a strike in Nebraska since 1972. So I had to figure out what all that meant. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that. We were on strike for 77 days. I was able to get Republicans out to our picket line. I was able to make it a nonpartisan issue because, look, these are just American workers that want a good job with decent pay and decent benefits. And that's really what it boils down to. And so we won that strike. We got a decent contract. We actually pretty much just got what we already had. We weren't asking for a whole lot. And so that we have to fast forward now to late 2023, and a group of railroaders caught wind and they saw what happened at Kellogg's and who this guy Dan Osborn is, and they asked me to run for Senate. This is a group that is very frustrated with at that time my opponent Deb Fisher, the way she votes on rail. She takes Union Pacific, BNSF, CSX, you name the railroad, she takes their money and does their bidding. Asked me to run for Senate, and I was like, holy crap. So I had to consult everybody that I knew and loved and asked them like, hey, should I do this? And everybody said no. Everybody. They can't be done. She's entrenched. She's a Republican. You're an independent. That's not going to work. She's got all the money. And for me, it was like, all right, hold my beer. Let's do it. And that was a hold my beer moment. And then what we did is we went out and did 200 public events with the truth that working class people deserve a seat at the table at the United States Senate. Because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And everybody who works for a living understands that.
So this election is 3.5 months away, and you're running, as you said, as an independent against incumbent Republican Senator Pete Ricketts, who's incredibly wealthy. Speaking to that income inequality that you were talking about before, his father founded TD Ameritrade, not a small company. There is no Democratic candidate, and the polls have this race pretty close, maybe even. So what's your pitch to voters between now and then about why they should vote for you over Ricketts?
Yeah, I think really at the end of the day, it's look, that's who I am, right? I punched a clock. For the last 23 years. I've turned wrenches. I know what it's like to put Christmas on a credit card. But really the pitch is is I'm not in the pocket. I've named my opponent actually yesterday at a town hall, Pocket Pete. So if let me explain. Could you trust me as an elected official, regardless of what state you're in, as a U.S. Senator? Could you trust me on issues of Iran if I'm taking money from the military industrial complex, if I'm taking money from the defense contractors? Could you trust me to be objective? Could you trust me to be objective on the issue of Israel if I'm taking AIPAC money? Could you trust me to negotiate reasonable drug prices for you and your family if I'm in the pocket of big pharma? Could you trust me on issues of farming and the Ogallala Aquifer, which is a precious resource here in Nebraska that is depleting 6 times faster than it can be replenished naturally? Could you trust me to be objective on data centers and AI if I'm taking their money? Right? That's what it boils down to. I don't take their money, and I'm not going to do their bidding. I believe in the words of Abraham Lincoln, a government by and for the people. And right now it's a government for the 1% and, the corporations.
So how are you funding this Senate campaign, which is not cheap?
It is not cheap. And that is another thing. It's campaign finance reform. That's what I want to change. So I'm totally running against the political industrial complex, which is very similar to the military industrial complex. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of people involved. There's lobbyists that all stand to lose if a guy like me wins. But I'm funding it. My average donation is $38. I've received individual donations from real people from 50 states, from all 93 counties in Nebraska. If you're watching this, you can go to osbornforsenate.com. You can donate yourself. That's really what it boils down to is we are powered by the people. I don't take corporate money. I don't take AIPAC money. The only lobbyist money that I take, I suppose, or special interest money, would be from unions, would be from anybody who I feel like is going to uplift workers.
Mm-hmm. So why are you running as an independent? It would seem to the average Joe that your policies tend to lean to those that are aligned with the Democratic Party, when independent candidacies aren't typically victorious, although in your case it's different because there is no Democrat, which is a very interesting phenomenon as well. But why not just run as a Democrat?
Yeah, because I'm not a Democrat. I mean, ultimately, when I went and joined the Navy and I registered to vote, I grew up in a conservative home, and I had to think about, that important decision on how to register. And I was like, man, I just don't. First of all, I was ill-informed and I didn't really understand why I had to accept a set of policies and issues and to be a part of a party and reject the other ones. And I am a student of history. I think George Washington was the very first independent, and he warned us of the two factions and where it could lead. And as soon as he was out, the two parties were formed. But ultimately, I'm a lifelong independent. That's why I'm running as an independent, because I feel like that best suits me to represent the people. Because I think both parties have failed recently as far as catering to the corporations, if you will, and taking their money. If you look at the way the DCCC recruited in 2024, lawyers, business execs, college professors. If you want to be a party for the people, you gotta enlist steamfitters, teachers, bus drivers, lunch ladies. You gotta nurses. You have to enlist the people that make it happen every day, and that's who I want to represent.
Well, obviously, this race is being watched very closely nationally because of its significance in the balance of power in the Senate and whether Democrats have a real shot at flipping the chamber. So who will you caucus with? How will you caucus?
Well, I think you and I should caucus together.
I'm down with that. I think we're more alike than you might think.
Yeah. And I mean, You look at the Constitution, you look at the rule books. There's nothing written down anywhere that says this is the way it's supposed to be. Again, this campaign is for the people. I want to caucus with the people. Maybe there's a world where we create our own caucus where we deny majority power to either side. And I think that's called a fulcrum caucus.
Mm-hmm.
And but I've mentioned that. I don't mention that too often. I don't know why I mention it now, but a lot of people are like, well, what happens if you do create that and you get people from the right, you get people from the left? Maybe it takes 4 to 6 people to create that in the U.S. Senate. What happens? You're not going to get anything done. Oh, okay. You talking about like not getting anything done, like not passing a farm bill from 2018, and our small family farms and ranches here in Nebraska are being left out because they're not updating crop insurance. Talking about SNAP benefits and people living in food deserts not getting the proper diet that they need. Are you talking about not passing an immigration reform, which we had an opportunity to do in 2023? Like, I think we're 250 years into this great American experiment. That's why I signed on the dotted line when I was 18 to serve this country that I love, to serve the state that I love. I think we need to really think about what we're doing as a nation and who we're electing, and really continue this great American experiment by electing and redeclaring maybe our independence and electing an independent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and speaking of redeclaring, you and I were sort of talking a little bit before we started taping about that thing behind you called the American flag. And we were in agreement that in the last several years, it just seems like that precious thing has been hijacked, just as patriotism has. Chants of USA, USA, USA. When someone hears chants of USA, USA, there's only one thing they hear. They hear MAGA, right? How is it as a country, with everything you just said, how did we let patriotism be hijacked by one arm of one party, and how do we get it back?
Yeah, well, I can tell you right now that I'm pissed off. I am pissed off that people drape themselves in the flag, including our elected officials, and then they want to privatize the VA. They want to have this vertical integration in our healthcare and our veteran system. They don't want to vote for victims of burn pits who have signed on the dotted line to serve our country. They want to sell them out, and then they call themselves patriots. That's the opposite of being a patriot. Only 1%, make no mistake, only 1% of our population sign on the dotted line to serve this country, and we owe them everything, including healthcare and cancer screenings and everything else that they deserve. I have a family member who just came home from Qatar, whose base has been bombed multiple times, who is now in he's going to the VA, and he's talking to a mental health therapist because he's got PTSD. And I talk to him every day, and that is the true cost of this war in Iran. And so now that brings us to this war in Iran, this war of choice. Look, I'm not going to sit here and get on a bully pulpit and say that the Ayatollah was a good guy and Iran doesn't need a nuclear weapon. We all know that's not true, but we had that in 2018. With our nuclear deal, we had inspectors there, and so now, when we have the advantage here of talking, and the fact that hindsight's 2020, but also we're way worse off than we were prior to us bombing Iran. And our young men and women, we've lost lives here in the great state of Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, I meant to ask you this before.
Yeah.
You mentioned you physically went down the Strait of Hormuz. I bet you when you did that, you never thought that one day the United States president would take us to war so that we can close that Strait of Hormuz.
No,
What?
that's the exact reason we went down that strait, was to keep it open, to have a presence there. So uh, we could have the opportunity to have a nuclear deal with Iran where we could have inspectors there and prevent them. If they want nuclear energy to power their cities, why would we deny them that? But of course, nobody wants them to have a intercontinental ballistic missile, as well as a warhead to be able to, you know, send that around the world. It was about for them to have power, and we had inspectors there to prevent all that. That's why I was there. That was the mission that we performed. And now that's all gone. Now we've created an entire society and another generation of people that are going to hate us. And that's my kids' grandkids that are going to be dealing with that into the future. And we're spending $1 billion a day, in this war. The cost is hitting every single person. And I've been through the state of Nebraska recently. I've talked to farmers and ranchers. They're the ones paying the price. I talked to a row crop farmer who farms 1,900 acres. His inputs, if he was able to get his fertilizer pre-war, it's $50,000 more. $50,000. That's not including the price of diesel fuel for his tractors. We're in the middle of a farm crisis that nobody is talking about. They want to talk about, my opponent's going to make this about men and women's sports. That's ridiculous. We're in a farm crisis. Kids are leaving the farm. In 14 years, we're not going to have enough farmers because kids are leaving the farm because it's not profitable, right? The tariff policy, the sweeping tariff policy is killing our row crop farmers. Nebraska's third in corn, behind Iowa and Illinois. Oh, I hate those guys. But we're fifth in soybeans, and we're first in beef. And our soybean farmers now have bins full of rotting soybeans because 52% of their market, it's gone. They don't want handouts. They want a market to sell their crops to. So that's a crisis. Our Ogallala Aquifer, the biggest body of fresh water in this country, probably the world, sits in Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, Texas. That's drying up. It's drying up 6 times faster than rainwater's replenishing it. That's a crisis. And now data centers want to move in and use that natural resource, hundreds of millions of gallons, to use that resource. And we have to talk about a surveillance state that we're becoming as well. But that's why we're in this crisis right now. That's why this election is so important. And my opponent, Pocket Pete Ricketts, he takes the money. He takes the money from AI. He takes the money from crypto. He takes the money from Class 1 railroads that are consolidating, trying to create monopolies. He takes the money from health insurance that has consolidated and vertically integrated the system. He's taken money from the corporations that are consolidating farming. He takes the money and he does their bidding. We have to change our elections, and I believe that's what this campaign represents. I don't take their money. I'm not going to be in the pocket. Sorry, I went on a tangent. I'm sorry.
No.
Andy, I'm pissed off.
We like pissed off people here because pissed off people are going to change what's happening in this country. My next question I'm going to approach very gingerly for the obvious reasons, but I think it would be really fair on some level to compare your candidacy with the excitement that Maine voters had for Graham Plattner, without, of course, all the personal transgressions and alleged criminality. Just in terms of the type of things he talked about and how his working class everyman campaigning really resonated with people who are struggling today. Do you think that's part of your special sauce and what's helping to propel your candidacy much as it did his before all his troubles?
Yeah, maybe. I know that my family cannot afford neither lobster or a bone-in ribeye at this point.
Touche.
But what we did in 2024, we ran one of the closest Senate races in the country. We overperformed the top of the ticket by 14. We got 47% of the vote. With that, again, I mentioned earlier the truth that working class people deserve a seat at the table. So we've incentivized or a lot of people around the country, we showed them what's possible. I think Graham Plattner exists there in that realm. Of course, I don't share the same values, all the same values, but his politics, if you break his politics down, it really is, it's about the working people.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the fact that this is a race to the bottom for most of us. And, you only need to look at like facts and figures, especially the one I like to repeat often and always is $50 trillion has migrated from 90% of Americans to the top 0.5% since 1980, since trickle-down economics. That's not working for me. I'm still waiting for the trickling down coming to my family.
Yeah. My last question is that you think about Trump, you think what the GOP is doing, you think even the help they're getting from the Supreme Court to influence and or steal this election that's coming up. How do you feel? Are you confident that we're going to have a free and fair election in November?
Yeah, I am. There's a lot of people working to counter that. There's a lot of people working in the space of hopefully this act that they say is going to save America, which is actually hurting voters, specifically women voters who've changed their name. There's a lot of people working to counter that. Mm-hmm. But also, my opponent and Americans for Prosperity, they're great at naming stuff, right? Americans for Prosperity, Save America, Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah, awesome branding.
Right to work, man. Hell yeah. We love that stuff, right? But the reality of it is those policies of choice hurt everyday welders and teachers and bus drivers, and they uplift the billionaire class. So
the big beautiful bill is not so beautiful.
No, it's not so beautiful in the fact that my opponent, Pocket Pete, has aptly renamed it the Working Families Tax Cuts in Nebraska. So it is no longer referred to as Big Beautiful Bill. I've renamed it the Ricketts Family Tax Cuts.
Yeah, but I call it the big ugly ass bill. That's what I've been calling it, because that's what it is. All right, so here's the last thing. I hear you do a great Donald Trump. So if you could, as Donald Trump, if you could tell us where folks can go if they want to learn more about your campaign, support you, donate, all that good stuff. Okay. Take us out, Donnie.
Well, quite frankly, I got to tell you, Dan Osborn is best for Nebraska. Nobody's better than Dan Osborn, quite frankly. Even Melania and Sleepy Joe, they all endorse him. You could go to osbornforsenate.com and you could donate to him today. But I got to tell you, frankly, he's the best. Nobody knows Nebraska. Nobody knows corn. Nobody knows soybeans like Dan Osborn.
You better win that election soon.
All right.
That was good. Because Saturday Night Live might be knocking on your door soon.
Okay. I do a lot of impressions. I do more than just Donald Trump.
Give me another one. I love impressions. I've been trying to do Trump for years. I can't do it. I can't do Trump.
I don't know if we're running out of time for your show.
No, I'm as much time as you have. I could sit here for the next 10 minutes doing impressions.
You like Christmas movies?
I love Christmas movies. Who doesn't?
Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life?
Sure.
Mary. I know this angel Clarence, and he says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. And Mr. Potter, he's nothing but a little spider, that Mr. Potter in the good old savings and loans. Mr. Potter's no different than Pete Ricketts. He just sits there and counts his money, and the only way he got his money is he took it from the rest of us in Beverly Falls. So, sorry. All right.
Mr. Osborn, that was fantastic. I am your potential colleague, Bernie Sanders, and I want to keep hearing more impressions from you when you get to the Senate. There you go. Good. We'll go out on that. Dan, good luck to you. I'm pulling for you. And do come back before the election and keep us updated. And let's talk about the campaign some more.
All right, my friend.
Take care. This episode was produced and edited by me, Andy Ostroy. It was co-produced by Matty Rosenberg and Jen Hammoud for Radio Free Rhiniecliff, with additional editing by Matty Rosenberg, music by Andrew Hollander, and graphic design by Cricket Lengyel. And with a special thanks to our sponsor, The Epicurean. Again, thanks for listening. Please rate and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the Backroom with Andy Ostroy YouTube channel, where you can watch full videos of our interviews. See you next time.